Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And good morning to everybody there in Zoom and later on in YouTube. It's wonderful to be here. The sanctuary looks so beautiful this time of year with the lights. I've been driving motor coach here the past several months, and last month I took a group over to Helena for they were in speech and debate, but so I had some free time to wander around Helena. And one of my favorite places to go is the Historical Museum. I don't know if you've ever been there, but they have a special section of the museum that is dedicated specifically to the life and the artwork of Charlie Russell. And of course, anyone who's been in Montana long enough knows about the work and artistry of Charles Russell. I was always a big fan of his, as opposed to Remington. He was more realistic, but I loved Charlie's style of painting. It was more impressionistic, and he had this ability to capture those Montana skies, the pinks, the oranges, the hues. It's just beautiful. Anyway, I went to that part of the museum, and it was in his gallery. And in the main part, on one wall, there is this huge painting that he did called "The Land Before God." And in the painting, in the composition, he has this herd of bison, of buffalo, crossing the Missouri River. And in a very commanding position in the composition of the frame is this bull buffalo looking right at you, and behind him is this herd of buffalo. And I'm looking at this, and you just get lost in that painting because it is just so incredible to think that this is the land before God, knew it. And it kind of reminded me of the story that I've heard, and I've said this before. It's called the story of God and the gardener. And this gardener was out taking care of the garden and making everything nice. And a gentleman was walking by, and he was noticing the gardener's work, and he says, "Boy, you and the good Lord sure do good work together." And the gardener turns to him and says, "Yeah, but you should have seen this place when God had the whole place to himself." Pretty wild stuff, So that painting of Charles Russell of When the Land Before Knew God was reminding me of that story, how we are co-creators with the presence of the divine, when we're open to that. We move one foot and God will move a foot. We move another way, God will move with us. It's just like we're never alone with the divine presence, the divine mind. I'd like to thank all the speakers who came before me during this month in terms of the theme. The power ability is life, and the theme is the light of life. And I thought that was kind of an interesting theme. I've been kind of, going over my mind about, well, what does that mean? In my own mind, I sometimes think of the Taoism, the yin yang, the up plus the minus, the up down, the light, the dark, night and day. So the light of life. Well, what would be the opposite of that? The dark of death? No, because in Unity, in New Thought, we don't believe in death. It's not death. Death is not an ending. We think of it as more of stagnation. The inability to just kind of stop and just stagnate, rather than moving with the dynamic of life, the light of life. It's an interesting thing about light. The physics of it is like wherever there is light, it is penetrating. It pushes back darkness. It gets into every nook and cranny and crevice, that light can get into. It finds the course of least resistance, like water. It is very all-pervasive. So we take that physical dynamic of light. I think of it almost like in Newtonian terms. For every action there's an opposite and equal reaction. The same way with light, when it's projected out amongst the darkness, it repels the darkness. There can be no darkness where there is light. And I like to believe that as spiritual beings that we are, when we are working towards being totally connected, we are emitting that light. We are showing that light. We are demonstrating that light and sharing that light to others. Now that is the ideal. That is the perfect thing that we are trying to do in terms of our spiritual growth and our spiritual path. But of course, just like a candle, put it within a lantern, it puts off soot, and that soot builds up on the lens. And after a while, that lens starts to diminish the light that is emitted from the candle in the lamp. And so, as an analogy, that means to me that periodically, as we live our life and try to express the light of divinity within us that we are, we need to sometimes, because of the after effects of the soot of the candle, that we need to clean our lens. That just happens over the time-space continuum. We have to remember to clean our lenses of our lamp, so we can better, emit that light of our own, spiritual lamp. And it comes in many forms, in terms of the challenges we have from day to day. My spiritual practice has always been one, and as I progress through my personal time-space continuum, it's a understanding and of always having to stay awake, to stay conscious, to be mindful of the things I say, the things I do, and what my thought processes are. I always have to catch myself and say, oh, wait a minute, take a moment. We all have instances in our day-to-day lives where our buttons get pushed and we react and respond, sometimes automatically. It's kind of, we know it is the kind of the Pavlovian concept that we just, conditioned responses to things. So it's important for us in unity to consider, we take a moment to respond. How do we can take a beat, and how do we want to, we choose through our free will how we want to respond. And we choose, of course, trying to be the best Christ that we can be through love, unconditional love, compassion, understanding, empathy. And we take that and demonstrate that to the best of our ability, to wherever we are in any given moment in time and present. And as the saying goes, there's no best day than today. Now is the moment. Today is the day. And I believe that we all have that ability to make those choices as we go forward in our day-to-day lives. Staying mindful, remembering to be awake, to stay awake, and work with our consciousness. But it's just not consciousness. Charles Fillmore talks about how it's one thing to be conscious and have consciousness. It's another thing to spiritualize that consciousness. That is the reason that we are mindful. We're trying to do all things through the lens, our lamp, of spiritualized consciousness. We see things ultimately through the lens of spirit. We come together in unity, realize we all are one. And that is a wonderful dynamic we have here as a spiritual community, and we understand that. But also at the same time, our work is, the three components of body, mind, and spirit. And sometimes those aren't aligned. They get moved around and shifted. We have issues with our bodies. We have issues of our thinking, of our mind, and issues of our spirituality. Well, am I following the right path? Is this good for me? Am I being fed spiritually? Mentally, am I just a victim of my own thinking? And then all the physical issues, especially as we get along in our years, things kind of ache, and we have physical challenges and whatnot. So we try to do the process of as Charles Fillmore talked about, is regeneration. It's a coalescing, a combining of all three elements, body, mind, and spirit, into one whole to regenerate our wholeness, and therefore creating unity within ourselves. And then we can move forward through our life's experiences and what we need to learn as individuals as we move along. And how do we do that? What's the trick? Staying awake, understanding that we have this ability to sit back within ourselves Gary Zukav wrote a wonderful book years ago called The Seat of the Soul, where you can, detach yourself. This is almost similar to the Buddhist practice too, that you kind of, your soul, your spirit sits back and kind of pays witness to your actions, to your thoughts, to the things that you do. And you therefore can see, you can therefore better understand your own, development, where you're evolving on your own spiritual path. The do's, the don'ts, whatever criteria you've set up for yourself in terms of having to work towards being a more perfect person, a more perfect Christ. I've yet to come across in my life experiences that perfect person. There's always that element of growth and development in our spiritual path. But the main thing is that remember that we are born of this incredible divinity, our divine inheritance, which we see and experience through light, the light of understanding. Light of life. Life is it's intangible in a lot of respects. We know what it looks like. We know what it feels like. It's more, but scientists and philosophers can never really quite grasp what is life. I mean, we can look at life and we can see how life is created under a microscope, and we can understand certain processes of it. But yet, in its essence, it is like the electricity that runs through an electric motor or a motor. The motor is inanimate, but when you put electrical current through it, the energy, all of a sudden, it becomes animated. It's interesting. There's three principles about life, if we look at it, in terms of, let me give you the definition, first of all, what Charles Fillmore says about life. And this is from the Revealing Word. And he says, life is divine, spiritual, and its source is God's Spirit. The river of life is within us and in every spiritual consciousness. We come into consciousness of the river of life through the quickening of spirit. We can be truly quickened with new life and vitalized in mind and body only by consciously contacting spirit. And this contact is made through prayer, meditation, and good works. So ultimately, it's a spiritual resolution that we have to discover within ourselves to be able to better emanate that divine light, that divine identity. And when you apply that to bringing forth the light of Christ in our lives and seeing it in other people's lives, we can look at it in three different dimensions of life. What is life? Life, it animates us. It moves us forward through our lives. It moves us forward, onward. It's a progressive kind of thing. It's an energizing force, and it animates us. When we're unanimated, what happens? We just got to get stagnant and just get bogged down in whatever it is that we seem to be dealing and coping with. We're starting to forget. So we have to bring back that element of remembrance of who we are as the divine beings that we are, truly are. The next component would be vitality. What is the root word of vitality is vital. It is a present energy. It's important. It has priority. So we see life as a very vital part of the process. We bring to our lives enthusiasm, zest, zeal, all the different powers and abilities that we're capable of. Yet it makes that our life more vital, and in some instances very exciting, or perhaps dangerous, depending on the choices we make. And the third component is presence. And this is what leads me to believe, and I always believe this, is that there is no death. Life is eternal. When we think about presence. You know, we've all had loved ones who have made their transitions. And, but there's something, even after they made their transition, that lingers with us. Some people say it's their memories. You'll always hold memories of them. But I think beyond that, I think it's a realization that their presence is always with us in a spiritual context. We never forget that. If there's anything in terms of understanding life after our transition, or death as people say, is that the presence of life never really goes away. The presence of a loved one's life never really goes away. It is always with us. Same as it is our hope that we abide in our faith, that when we make our transitions, that our presence will always be with our loved ones. They will always eternally be with us. This is the nature of life, of spirit. I love what Uncle Albert Einstein said. He says, life is neither created or destroyed. Nothing is created or destroyed. It just transforms. And I think what we do in this life while we're here is the constant, ongoing lesson of transformation. I'm not the same person I was yesterday, but I know I'm going to be a different person tomorrow because I'm involving in the process of my own personal transformation. And I like to see that in other people too. I know where other people were in their lives, years ago, and now they're almost like totally different people. But it's like a different, it's very subtle. It's a soft progression. It's a very benign evolution. And someone just, turn on the switch. It's for the truth seekers of like we are, unitists, it's a gradual process. We don't really ever arrive. We're on our journey. And I guess the best thing is saying that the journey is our destination. And we learn from that as we move along. So there's constant process of transformation into the light to better express the Christ within us, our Buddha nature, our spiritual nature, the divinity within. And we have the wonderful aspect of free will to make those choices of how we want to have the divine expressed every day in our lives. So, life, bringing light to life. There would be no life without light. Animation, vitality, presence. All those align up. And we work towards our wholeness. We know when we're not whole, there's like a missing piece that we are aware of if we're mindful, if we're working at maintaining consciousness, but not only consciousness, but as I said, our spiritualized consciousness. It's an ongoing, I like to say, challenge, because we struggle. We struggle with the material world and the physical world and the spiritual world, the principalities of this world and the principalities of the spiritual world. And we find ourselves, as we move along in our evolution of our spiritual development, that we do have our challenges in terms of living in the world. I think the saying we've heard before is the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. We know that we innately are divinely inherited with our divine mind, divine identity. In the 12 Powers, Charles Fillmore really kind of takes a lot of time trying to help the reader understand that the power of life lies in the reproductive area of our bodies, so he says that we have to strive that our generative organs are imbued with this energy of life and wants to help us move forward, either through our progeny and procreation and all that. But he said you have to always keep it in perspective. It's so easy to fall into a carnal aspect of that energy of life, whereas the purpose is to realize that and transcend it into a more perfect idealization of the perfect person, the Christ-like. We can transcend our animal basic instincts and move forward in the development of our spirituality and be a better Christ person. So I thought that was kind of interesting when I read that in the 12 Powers. And Cora, his second wife, went on and she lightly touched on that separation between the carnal aspect of our generative powers of life to the more spiritual aspects, where that is our goal, to become unified as one with our connection with the divine. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Also, the person focus for the theme of life, the ability of life, was Judas Iscariot, the person who betrayed Jesus and then who later committed suicide. And it was Unity. Charles went on to explain that he was very important in the process of the mission of Jesus the Messiah. So when Judas did what he did and left and took his life, that left only 11 disciples. And the disciples decided, well, they needed to replace him. So as an analogy, it's like the universe hates a vacuum. Whatever is removed needs to be filled again. It's a natural process. So we see that, we understand that. So when there's loss, there's something, you hear the saying, when you close one door, there's another door that opens. Well, it's the same process in our life experiences. One thing leads to another. Now, what that another is depends on the quality of our experience and the choices we've made and the accumulation of our so-called karma or whatever it is we've done in our lives up to this point that will qualify what is that the universe comes and replaces in that vacuum. God doesn't, Albert Einstein said, God does not play dice, with the universe. It's not a gamble. There's a deliberate divine principle and law that is replaced, that is co-equal to whatever was lost. So there's a balance. There's a cosmic balance to it all. And so I don't spend a lot of time pondering, is this going to be the same? If this is lost, do I get the same thing back or something less? I know that in my own abiding faith, as a New Thought student, is that it'll all be in divine order. And I can see that through the aspect of the light of Christ, the divinity. It all works out. So the light of life, the light of life. We look at light and we can perceive it in a lot of different ways. I choose to see it as a sparkling reminder of the magic, the mystery, the wonderment. And I think as we are born, we have that innately within us, that ability to sense the magic, the wonderment, the discovery. And as we go through life, we go up to childhood and our teenage years, then young adults, and later on our experiences as adults and maturing. We go through life and things kind of seem to pile on, and we get conditioned to certain way things are, and respond in certain ways because we've been conditioned to respond that way. We get into situations in our lives where we become followers because that's how we've always done it, or we get a job because we've always done it this way, so this is what's expected of us in terms of our particular society. But worldwide, it's the same pattern. We join what is the social mores, the social norms, the expected conditioning and behavior that we are taught to do. But that's not necessarily the truth of who we are and our identity in terms of our divinity within. So I like to think, as I go on my journey here, and with the element and the perspective of the divinity within me and the light bringing to the darkness of my experiences that I can better understand, is that, I can have a job and I produce whatever the job requires. But am I really achieving my full potential? Can I not only just, do a job that produces what's expected of me, but can I produce value? When you produce value, can I create something of value? Something that nothing has been thought of before. Something that, it's called visioning. You're seeing the big picture of things. Bringing light to something that has not existed before, or maybe existed, but in a different way, that you can bring your own consciousness to it and see it in a new light that brings new life in the new light of seeing things and creating a new value. It's interesting, this element of the creative potential that we have in all of us, and how we have the ability, if we so choose, to utilize that. I read a story about Steve Jobs, the creator of Apple. A very, very brilliant, genius man, affected all the technologies that we use today in one form or another. But on his deathbed, some of the last words that he spoke was, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." Isn't that incredible? That he was still in that frame of mind of discovery and wanting to search and understand more, even at the threshold of his transition. He was in awe, being in awe. And I think that's what I'd like to convey today in today's message. The aspect of being in awe about the light of life, seeing the wonder of life, the magic of life, the potentialities that we all have, and choices we can make to make our lives better. That's one of the reasons why we come to Unity, why we seek a spiritual community. We want a better lives. We want to have assurance that our hopes are not hopeless, that our faith will abide in us no matter what. And we come here and we can see that in everybody else. And we know that to be true, because we're all seeking the same thing. We all want to be creative. We want to create for ourselves and hopefully our children and our children's children and beyond a life that is truly miraculous, wondrous, full of wonder and magic. And it's this time of the year where we have all the physical representations and reminders of that magic. The magic is with us every day of our lives, year-round, 24/7, 365 days in the year. It's nice we can take, a season to remember that, but it's with us always. The divine is with us always through the light of life. So I bless each and every one of you that your life will become much more, enriched with the spiritualization of your consciousness as you move forward through your own spiritual path. Wherever you are, you're okay. It's all right. It's going to be fine. Because we're all children of God, little fishes swimming in the ocean of God. We're moving right along. I'm going to move into our meditation right now. And this is from a book called Divine Audacity. I think a lot of you are familiar with it, Linda Martell Winslet. But I like what it says. It kind of sums up some of the things I've been speaking about. So you take this moment right now and take a big deep breath in and exhale. Another deep breath in and exhale. And one more time. Let the presence of the divine move within you. Breathing consciously, extending my arms out from my shoulders, I revel in aliveness. I move my life-filled body, swaying, dancing, and stretching as a prayer of appreciation. I tune my awareness to the first chakra, the generative organs within my pelvis, the center of my life faculty. I shine the red light of life throughout my pelvis, blessing my vital organs with life. I extend life from this nucleus outward, blanketing my entire body with life nourishment. Established in life, I appreciate the universal source of life. That which gives life to me is creativity. Therefore, I give life to everything that I am creating. That which gives life to me is abundance. Therefore, I steady myself in abundance consciousness, knowing all things are possible and living richly. That which gives life to me is compassion. Therefore, I embody kindness in every thought, word, and action toward others and myself. That which gives life to me is joy. Therefore, I live in the delight of every moment. My body does not give life to me. The source of all life, that I am. I give life to my body. I am my true divine nature. To movement and form, function and consciousness. I am divine life. I tune to life's power of animation. My external life in perpetual motion. My capacity to understand continually expands. I am forever flowing in forward, onward, and upward ways. My vision enlarges with every divine idea that I set in motion. Acquiescing to the tidal flow of life, I move and rest, retreat and extend, pause and proceed, grieve and rejoice, grasp and release. I tune to life's power of vitality. Wholeness is my true nature. I am vitally alive in mind, body, and spirit. The intelligence that creates worlds for the life within me. I am the integrating power of divine life. I tune to life's power of presence. I am fully present, a radiating light, and in my presence, others rise to awareness of their spiritual nature. I am divine life, ever renewing. I am divine life, ever expressing. I give life to divine ideas. All that I give life to life. And through the course of my life, I am always, always grateful to be conscious of the divine within me. Prayer, meditation, and the things I say and do give me pause to reflect upon my own divine nature. So thank you for this day. Thank you for the other people in my life that helped me realize the Christ within. And may this season of the celebration of the coming of life bring us joy, unconditional love, compassion, and understanding. And let our lamps of light emanate out so we can be a beacon for those who are still in spiritual darkness. And we pray for them and pray for others, that they are restored and that they are whole. And so it is, so it was, and so it shall be. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you. Amen and amen. Okay, on the count of three, everybody say ah. 1, 2, 3. Ah. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. Thank you. We're going to do our prayer of protection. So if you'd like to stand at this time, we'll say our prayer of protection, followed by the singing of the peace song. Oh, wait, we have an interjection here. Cookies and coffee. Okay, wonderful. Let's form a circle. Okay, together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.